What do you want me to say? Really?
Yeah.
Almost live. As good as we can do at 75. In the Sprouts parking lot during our 13th river of
shit.
It's not too bad now. I'm headed off.
What do you got in the bag, dear?
Something that needs to be returned because it's ooky.
And what's that? It looks it looks obscene. It look as
Lon,
fruit goes.
Lon,
it looks obscene.
Lon, never mind what it is. You don't care. They don't care. They have other important things to do, like what you're going to talk about today.
It's a 400-pound papaya.
It is not. It was on sale for a good reason because it's inedible.
Okay, bye, dear. Go in while it's not raining.
It seems to have stopped for a second just for me to walk in the store.
Yes.
Glory to God.
That's our blessing for today. Let's see if I can turn it around. There we are. Well, this is a familiar scene. It's a familiar wet scene. And we're in for, this is only the beginning, we're told, on the news. The beginning of another atmospheric river. And you can't even see the white tie and tails that I'm wearing under all of this because she makes me wear this poncho. Anyway, we've been talking about the lamp and yesterday we talked about the sword, and in my sort of perusing and reviewing of things that Crowley said about the magical weapons and such, it occurred to me to look back at a book that is almost impossible to find in hard copy or even paperback at a reasonable price. It's not for collectors. Is Magick Without Tears. Now it is available on Kindle, and if you're a Crowley fan or even interested in Crowley and would like to hear his candid thoughts in the last couple years of his life. Crowley had a long and distinguished and notorious career, and his attitudes and even the quality of his consciousness evolved and changed over the years. And it's often you think, well, Crowley contradicts himself a lot. Well, so do you. If you had a body of writing that you did when you were in your early 20s, and a body of writing that you had in your late 20s, and a body of writing that you had in your 30s, all the time studying yourself, practicing yourself, going on all of your traumatic and blissful and inspiring events in your life. Of course, it'll sound like you contradict yourself. And I mean, I didn't start writing until like 1989. I started writing, and by 1991, I was already disagreeing with myself. So it just happens that way. But Magick Without Tears was written just before he died, and it wasn't written as a book per se. Crowley was collecting his copies of his letters back to, and someone out there can correct me. I'm sure Richard Kaczynski could actually pinpoint who his student was that he was writing back to. And we don't have copies of their letters to him, but you can tell the way he answers the letters what their questions were. And it's sort of at the very last of his life where he is now in a position to sort of look back and seriously, with nothing to lose, very little ulterior motives or ego facades to hold up. He was about ready to die, and they're just fabulous letters back, and so informative. And they refer back to even then out of print material in reference to what he's saying. So to the Crowley student, Magick Without Tears is invaluable. And so I was going through my Kindle copy of Magick Without Tears. I'm sure I've got hardcover copies, probably still in boxes from the move. In reference to these magical weapons that we're talking about. And I ran across a chapter here, or a letter back, simply called Improvising a Temple. And so obviously part of this woman's disciples or woman disciples letter question was, the Golden Dawn's gone. What kind of temple could I use? And you talk about a temple. And here's Crowley's answer back to this lady. Karasaror. Whatever will be, will be. That was a digression. Karasaror. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. This letter has been provoked by points discussed in your recent visit. So obviously she had visited him in his boarding house, probably in Netherwood. As some of your daily practices are ceremonial, it should not come amiss to vouchsafe a few hints of practical service. For in ritual magic, it will, of course, be the first care to get everything balanced and tidy. If you propose to erect a regular temple, the most precise instructions in every detail are given in Book 4, Part 2. Now, in the last couple days, we've been reading from Book 4, Part 2, about the wand and but anyway. But I haven't so much as seen a copy for years. I got to digress again. Oh, this is going to be terrible. I'm going to digress all over the place. A Mason friend of mine, Facebook friend, just contacted me just a few hours ago with a photograph of Book 4, and that would be Book 4, Part Magick, Part 1 and 2. But it was like a novelty book. It was paperback, ancient. It was like the first edition with Soror Viracem and Frater Perdurabo, and there's a big 4 on the cover. It's a square book. It's not even rectangular. And another picture of the inside thing, and it was a dedication, handwritten dedication of Israel Regarde. Okay. And the book had been given to his father way back in the past, and it was just I haven't written him back, but for a collector that would be a true treasure. But anyway, it's just another synchronicity, and that's the book Crowley's referring to, that edition of the book that in 1946 or whenever he's writing this letter back, he's saying, I haven't even seen a copy of this in years. There's a good deal of scattered about in part 3, that's Magick with in Theory and Practice, which you have, especially about the 4 elemental weapons. But if circumstances deny you for the moment the means of carrying out this edification, as the ideal would have it, you can certainly do your best to create a fairly satisfactory, above all, workable substitute for Magick Temple. I'm going to skip one of his digressions here. He's prone to do this at this stage of his life. I was often reduced to such expedients when wandering in strange lands, camping on glaciers, sitting in parked cars while the rain beats down on... no, that's a digression. I was often reduced to such expedients when wandering in strange lands, camping on glaciers and so on. I fixed it workably well. In Mexico, for instance, I took my bedroom itself for the circle, my night table for the altar, my candle for the lamp, and I made the weapons compact. I had a wand 8 inches long. Now, this description of his wand, listen carefully. I had a wand 8 inches long, all precious stones and enamel to represent the tree of life within. In other words, it was an iron tube, and the iron tube contained quicksilver, mercury. I had a wand 8 inches long, all precious stones and enamel to represent the tree of life, within an iron tube containing quicksilver. Very correct, lordly, and damn silly. What a club. Also, bought a silver gilt cup for air and earth. I made 1 sachet of rose petals in yellow silk and another in green silk, packed with salt. In the wilds, it was easy, agreeable, and most efficacious to make a circle, build an altar of stones. My alpine lantern served admirably for the lamp. It did double duty when required in partaking of the sacrament of the 4 elements. That's the sort of the climax of the Golden Dawn ceremony, the Eucharist at the end of the ceremony. And you heat your fingers on the warmth of the lamp. It served for fire. But your conditions are not so restricted as this. let us consider. Hang on. Let us consider what one can do with an ordinary house, such as you are happy enough to possess. Can you hear the rain? The wind's supposed to start up here in just a few minutes. First of all, it is of immense advantage to have a room especially consecrated to the work, never used for any other purpose, never entered by any other person than yourself, unless it were another initiate, either for inspection in case you were working together. The aura accumulates with regular and frequency of use. Now, the aura he's talking about will be familiar to Golden Dawn OTO initiates and Freemasons that can tell you that there is a tangible atmosphere in a room that has been used over and over again in the case of many Masonic lodges for centuries. You actually feel like you're walking into a jello of egregore. But I digress. The first point is the banishing. Everything is to be removed from the room which is not absolutely necessary to the work. I knew I was going to digress. For many years, Constance and I were invited to go to different places around the country and around the world, actually, to perform certain OTO degree initiations that required people of our degree to do them. So, in other words, as the OTO was growing, local lodges had to import the initiators. And in some of these higher degrees, the temple setups are rather elaborate. Okay, they can be improvised, all right. You don't have to buy furniture or anything like that, but they are elaborate and require certain color schemes and things like that. And very often we were assured that they'll have everything necessary for us, that the temple's all set up. All we have to do is just sort of fly in, throw on our robes, slap on our lipstick, and go. And it was never like that. And I really have to warn people, if you invite Constance to come mount initiations in your temple or in your home temple, you better be ready to take orders. And one of the first orders is, she looks around and says, we're supposed to start in an hour, No. Move every stick of furniture out of this house, out of this room. It all goes, now. And no one can say no to her, okay? And nothing in the room that isn't part of the ritual is in that room. Okay, so that she did just exactly this. The first point is the banishing. Everything is to be removed from the room which is not absolutely necessary to the work. In this country, one must attend to the heating. An electric stove in the east or the south is best. You must not need attention. One can usually buy stoves, and he goes on and on about the stoves. The walls should be self-colored, a neutral tint. Green, gray, or blue-gray, question mark. And entirely bare, unless you put up in the proper quarters, the proper designs, such as the watchtowers. Remember that your east, your Qibla, is Boleskine House, which is as near as possible due north from Plymouth. So his correspondent here is from Plymouth. Find north by the shadow of a vertical rod. Okay, he tells her how to do that. The stele of revealing may be just on the north wall to make your east. Next, your circle. The floor ought to be earth green, but white will serve, or black. A Masonic carpet is not at all bad. That could be ornamented along the margins, along the border, bordered, checkered, black and white checkered. The circle itself should be shown in book 4, and that's the circle with like an upside down T made of 10 squares, and those squares represent the 10 Sephiroth of the Tree of Life. Is shown in Book 4, Part 2. But as this volume is probably unavailable, ask me to show you a large painted diagram in my portfolio when next you visit me. We can arrange for it to be copied. This should then be painted in the correct colors on the floor. The Kether square to the north, your east. Whatever your east is, that's where the Kether, the top point, is. Okay. To her, that would be geographically north. The altar must fit exactly the square of Tiferet. So if the altar was a double cube, each side of each of the cubes is the exact size of one of the squares on that Tau cross on the floor. Everything is starting to revolve around you and your size, because you want your altar to be slightly below the navel or at the navel. So that would determine then the size of your circle, everything. Oh, note that the height of the altar has to suit your convenience. It is consequently in direct relation with your own stature, in proportion. It is a double cube, as Lon says. This then determines the size of your circle. In fact, the entire apparatus, the furniture, is a geometric function of yourself. Consider it all as a projection of yourself in terms of these conventional formulae. After all, the word convention does really mean that which is convenient. How abject, then, to obey a self-styled convention which is actually as inconvenient as possible. I think that's in reference to suggestions that that it won't be magical unless it's a pain in the ass. Okay. Next, the lamp. Now we come back to the day before yesterday. This may be of silver or silver gilt to represent the path of Gimel. It is to be hung from the ceiling exactly above the center of the altar. There are plenty of old church lamps which serve very well. The light is to be from a wick in a floating cork in a glass of olive oil. I hope you can get it. It is really desirable to make this as near the ever-burning lamp of the Rosicrucians as possible. It is not a drawback that this implies frequent attention. It is not a drawback that your lamp needs frequent attention. Now for the weapons. The wand. Let this be simple, straight, and slim. Have you an almond or a witch hazel in your garden? Or do I call it a park? If so, cut it with a magic knife. I would lend you mine. Cut with a magic knife a bough as nearly straight as possible, about 2 feet long. Peel it, rub it constantly with oil of a bromelain. And this and his incense. Oh, he tells you where to get it, Wallace & Co., and he gives the address. And keep it wrapped in scarlet silk constantly. I wrote and I meant it. Rub it when saying your mantra to the rhythm of the same. Remember, Akaduha is the best. Ask me to intone it to you when you next visit me. Oh, what a treat then. The cup. There are plenty of chalices to be bought. It should be of silver. If ornamented, the best form is that of the apple. I've seen suitable cups in many shops. The sword, the ideal form, is shown in the Ace of Swords in the tarot. At all events, let the blade be straight, and the hilt a simple cross. 32nd degree Masonic sword is not too bad. And he gives a shop and an address on Great Queen Street. If I'm not mistaken, I've shopped there myself with my good friend Clive Harper. But I digress. Clive, if you're listening, hello. I miss you guys. The disc. This ought to be of pure gold with your own pantacle, designed by yourself after prolonged study, graved thereupon. While getting ready for this, any plain circle of gold will have to serve your turn. Quite flat, of course. If you want a good, simple design to go on interim, try the Rosy Cross or the Universal Hexagram. So much for the weapons. Now, as to your personal accoutrements, robe, lamon, sandals, and the like, the Book of the Law has most thoughtfully simplified matters for us. Quote, I charge you earnestly to come before me in a single robe and covered with a rich headdress. The robe may well be in the form of a Tau cross. In other words, expanding from axilla to ankle and from shoulder to whatever you call the place where your hands come out. And he refers us to an illustration in the book Magick. You, being a probationer, plain black is correct, and the universal hexagram may be embroidered or appliqué, is it? I mean stuck on upon the breast. The best headdress is the nemes. I could not trust myself to describe how to make one, but there are any number of models in the British Museum on any illustrated hieroglyphic text, etc. The Sphinx wears one, and there's a photograph showing the shape and structure very clearly in Equinox 1:1, frontispiece. You can easily make one yourself out of silk. Broad black and white stripes is a pleasing design. Avoid artistic complexities. Well, That ought to be enough to keep you out of mischief for a little while, but I feel moved to add a line of caution and encouragement. Listen. Faites attention. Achtung. Karabardar karo. In other words, pay attention. Just as soon as you start seriously to prepare a place for magical work, the world goes more cockeyed than it already is. Don't be surprised if you find that 6 weeks of intense shopping all over London fails to provide you with some simple requisite that normally you could buy in 10 minutes. Perhaps your fires simply refuse to burn, even when liberally dosed with petrol and phosphorus. With a handful of chloride of potash thrown in just to show there is no ill feeling. When you have almost decided that you had better make up your mind to do without something that seemed quite unobtainable, say a 60-carat diamond, which would look so well on that headdress, a perfect stranger comes along and makes you a present of one. Or a long series of quite unreasonable obstacles or silly accidents interfere with your plans, or the worst difficulty in your way is incomprehensibly removed by some extraordinary freak of chance. Or, in a word, you seem to have strolled into a world where, well, it might be going too far to say that the law of cause and effect is suspended, but at least the law of probability seems to be playing practical jokes on you. This means, other magicians out there, does this sound familiar? This means that your maneuvers have somehow attracted the notice of the astral plane. Your new neighbors, may I call them, are taking an interest in the latest tenderfoot. Some to welcome, to do all they can to help you to settle down. Others, indignant or apprehensive at this disturbance of the routine. This is where your banishings and invocations come to the rescue. Of course, I'm not here referring to the approach to the sanctuaries, which, of course, are necessarily closely guarded, but merely to the recognition of a newcomer to that part of the world in general. Okay, the chapter goes on, but that's where we're going to end today. As you can hear, it got quite stormy there for a little while, and I hope that I still have a signal, and I hope that you heard the whole thing. But anyway, until tomorrow, if we don't float away, until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself. Go build your temple. Be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.